Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to analyze one of the most controversial, difficult to understand shita that has been presented and become quite popular in recent years, and that is the position of the Meiris about Christianity. Now, I mentioned this, I think, briefly, but to give you a bit of history of when this really became important, and since then it's been all the rage. So, February 9th, 1807, Napoleon Bonaparte establishes a Sanhedrin. Yes, Napoleon. Yes, Napoleon. You know Napoleon Bonaparte?
I know who he is. Louisiana Purchase and everything. I don't think it was
more than... He wasn't. He was not a Jew. And he established a Sanhedrin.
But he was good for Jews also.
And the point of the Sanhedrin was the following.
So he gets constricted.
So here is the question. Is he got together 112 rabbis and laymen, led by Rav David Sinsheim of Strasbourg. And he had 12 questions he wanted to ask them about how Jews viewed their relationship with non-Jews. And he told them in advance what type of answers would be acceptable for them to answer these questions. Okay, so this was the background, and he was asking about some of the discriminatory laws that we find in Judaism between Jews and non-Jews, right? Which was a bit of a problem, especially in when you're trying to have an equal French society, when suddenly you have a as Haman said, right? You have one nation which is different in its laws, that can cause a little bit of a problem. So he had 12 questions that he asked them. Now, suddenly, as you can imagine, the pressure was on to the rabbis there to answer in a way that would be amenable to Napoleon, who wasn't known for being sympathetic to people who didn't do what he wanted them to do. I guess that's an understatement, but okay, right? Fine. So
the Spaniards,
yeah, right? So Napoleon was Napoleon. So suddenly, they pulled out a magical shita by our good friend Rabbi Menachem Meiri of Provence, or how do you say it? Provence. Yeah, okay. We'll rely on that. Because the Meiri seems to have a shita, though it's quite cryptic, which he says in many, many places about the status of other religions. Okay? Now, I gave you 2 places in the Meiris, but there are at least 34, which is why this shita is quite complicated. Okay. We're going to read 2 of them. Let's see if we can get them, okay? So, as we know, our Gemara starts off with the prohibition of doing business with non-Jews. And as we've mentioned many times, so we haven't actually done it inside yet, the Rishonim are struggling, right? As I said, today we'll do Islam tomorrow, and then we'll get back to the Gemara, the issue of business with non-Jews, and then we're going to have to, once we understand the basic sugya, we're going to have to do what all the Rishonim did, which is, okay, we've done all the nice lamdos, and wait a second, we don't keep this, right? We all go to malls on Sunday, right? Yesh ba'ya, right? Yesh ba'ya hippo. So the Meiri was also asking the question, how could it be that we do business with non-Jews? Specifically Christians. So, here's what he says. Okay? This is Meiri, beginning of Avodah Zarah. He says, who wants to read it? It's not, yeah, good.
V'hari minhag, that one?
Yep.
V'hari minhag, hayitar af v'yom ha'ir, and...
B'yom ha'ed.
Oh, v'yom ha'ed.
By the way, it will serve you well in life to know that there was a Sanhedrin of Napoleon. At least it did when I took modern Jewish history. I don't know if you will ever take modern Jewish history, but if you do...
I'm waving to you.
No, and just in general, it's one of the... If you guys haven't noticed yet, I value being educated, just generally, like widely educated. Having big words, good vocabulary.
Napoleon made his own Sanhedrin, like with Christians, or like...
No, Jews.
Okay,
Jews.
Just gathered the Jews.
Yes, he gathered together Jews and said, I have some questions about Judaism and their relationship with other religions that bother me. Here are my 12 questions. please give me an answer that will not make me want to kill you. Right? That's essentially what happened. Right? That's what's going on. Okay? So they magically found the Meiris. They found the Meiris. Okay, go.
And was the minhag that you were allowed?
Okay, I just want to point out, minhag means what?
Custom.
Yeah, it just means custom. Okay, he doesn't mean here like custom in like we have to keep the minhag. Then I go say with them. He just said it's what people do.
People did it.
Yeah, the minhag is he's just like the minhag and afut. Like you look around and people shop on Sunday. They shop on December 25th. They shop on Easter Sunday. Assuming stores are open, they shop on, v'chulei, right?
I heard it's a thing here that you're not allowed. That you shouldn't shop at a store that's open on Shabbat, like any fake malls.
At the store. Shouldn't eat. That's different.
Different. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about Jews who are violating Shabbos. We're talking about you're at a mall.
Yeah.
Right? People go on Sunday. They go on Christmas, assuming it's open, which it usually isn't, but fine. Right? They go on New Year's, which it might be open.
New Year's morning, not Eve.
Fine. Yes. Don't go outside on New Year's Eve. People are driving drunk. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. Okay.
And so it was the custom to you were allowed after Yom Ha'ed. I know Eid is business.
No, Eid is holiday. B'yom Edam, right?
I did not translate that incorrectly. I read through the Mishnah for you again because we had dealt with that word numerous times and you somehow translated it incorrectly.
On Eid, right? The day of their holiday, right? People do business with non-Jews on their holidays, right? Mitoch kach.
Oh yeah.
What's mitoch kach?
From mitoch.
Mitoch kach is because of this.
Okay. Because of this, ikar.
Right? Ikar hadvarim, right? What's ikar hadvarim?
No.
What's ikar? Yeah, the main point, the essence. Hadvarim of these things, right? Ikar hadvarim, right? How is it, right? The upshot, right? This is what it is. Near Eli. What does near Eli mean?
We see.
Near Eli. It seems to me, right? Near Eli. It seems to me. Kulam. Everything. Meaning the ganze Masechet Avodah Zarah, right? Business. And all this prohibition we have, right? We'll see, right? Not just business, right? Selling arms to them, right?
What about legs?
Bear arms. Yes.
We do not say
bear arms.
You have the right word.
Lo namru ella. We only say it.
Oh, we only say that. All of the ha'ililim on days
Ovdei ha'elilim, idol worshippers. Tzurateihem utzalmeihem. Right? Right, their forms, their statues, meaning idol worshippers, pagans. Right, this whole Gemara, when we talk about Ovdei Kochavim, we mean Ovdei Kochavim umazalot. Right? Star worshippers, idol worshippers, like Pshuto,
in other words,
Kimashmo.
when you say star worshippers or idol worshippers, do you mean you refer as them pagans?
Yeah, I mean a star worshipper, a pagan worshipper, a guy who worships a statue of Zeus, right? Right? A guy who has rocks from Marcolis. Remember we talked about the rocks for Mercury? Right? Yeah, I mean historically they didn't throw it. You know who's a hiker here? Okay, so apparently when you hike there are those like rocks.
Yeah, those things. Those
Yeah.
piles.
Do you know where they come from?
No.
That's Marcolis.
The idea, like the original, the OG rock piles.
like that help you get around.
Yeah, those things.
Yeah,
That's Avodah Zarah.
it originates in Avodah Zarah. Why? Because who was Mercury or Hermes? The god of travelers. Yes, the god of travelers. Wing boots. Right? So those were, yes, so those things, what are they called? What are they called? Cain?
No idea, but how long can this be?
No, he's also the god of communication.
What is it? What is it they're called? It's the traveler, it's the hiking, what are they called? Let me see if I can find it.
Wasn't he also the god of communication?
I don't know. Could be. That sounds right. Hiking, rocks,
Yeah.
it's a cairn. I think that's how you pronounce it correctly. Cairn, C-A-I-R-N, cairn. Right. So according to Wikipedia, a cairn is a human-made pile or stack of stones. The word cairn comes from the Scottish, Gaelic. I don't read Gaelic. Jonanthan used to read Gaelic, but I don't read Gaelic.
Didn't you speak Gaelic one time?
No, I have no idea how to speak Gaelic. Who do you think I am?
You quoted someone that knows how to speak.
Yeah, Rabbi Jonanthan knows Gaelic. New Gaelic. Yeah, so where is this? Yeah, so in the mythology of ancient Greece, cairns were associated with Hermes, the god of overland travel. According to one legend, Hermes was put on trial by Hera for slaying her favorite servant, the monster Argus. All of the other gods acted as a jury, and as a way of declaring their verdict, they were given pebbles and told to throw them at whichever person they deemed to be in the right, Hermes or Hera. Hermes argued so skillfully they ended up buried under a heap of pebbles, and this was the first cairn. Anyways, that's Marcolis for you. What?
Pebbles. So they were going to stone the person. They did stone him.
They stoned the god Hermes.
The
Okay.
person that was right.
Yes, I don't know. I don't. It's Greek mythology. I don't know.
Still the right person.
I don't know.
It's Greek mythology. They're all stupid.
I don't know. He was a know-it-all, so they threw rocks at him. I don't know. Okay, I don't know. Anyways,
Right.
that's not the point.
Shut up.
Yes. Right. Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, I don't know. Okay, anyways.
We learned from this you should be stupid.
You don't. Absolutely not.
Bring a bag of rocks to shear.
You'll end up like those Greeks.
Okay. So he says, these apply to those idolaters. But now here's the key. Aval.
Aval Bizmanim Halalu Mutar Ligmarei.
Ligamre.
But in these times, it's hard. It's okay to fin it.
Mutar ligamre. Completely.
It's completely allowed.
Yeah. So he says, how could it be? Now he's saying, realistically, who were the non-Jews of his time?
Max! Yeah. What are you doing?
Okay. He said, right, realistically, he's among Christians. So he says, wait a second. So you're telling me business with Christians is mutter. What's the problem? He has the Girsa in the Gemara that we saw in the manuscripts. That the Gemara explicitly says, who are we talking about here?
The Christians.
Christians! Says, Umasha Amru B'Gemara Notzri L'Olam Asur.
What that is said, they in the Gemara, Notzri L'Olam, the Notzri in the world.
The Olam is forever. Asur. Please put your phone away. Thank you.
Forever Asur. Ani Mefarshu Elashon. I am.
I explain it based on the language of Notrim Ba'im Me'eretz Merachok Ha'amur B'Yirmiyah. I think I explain it based on a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, right? The Notrim, which come from faraway land.
That calls them Ha'am Notrim.
Hashem? Nebuchadnezzar. He said it doesn't mean Christians. It means
people who worship Nebuchadnezzar.
these Nebuchadnezzar people. V'yadua shetzelem hashemesh haya bebavel.
He knows that Salem cake.
Selem. An image. An idol. A statue.
Actually, now Metzalem pictures. Salem.
Exactly. Right? Selem hashemesh haya bebavel.
The images of the sun were in Babel. in all of Nebuchadnezzar's,
Shkol Am Nebuchadnezzar,
in all that were with Nebuchadnezzar,
the nation, Shkol Am Nebuchadnezzar, Hayu Ovdim Lo.
Hayu of Dinu, they worshipped him.
They worshipped it, the sun. Right? So he's saying it doesn't mean Christians, it means the sun worshipper nations that Nebuchadnezzar had. Right? There was this sun worshipping people who were pagans. Okay? Ukvarya Data. And you already know.
Shechama, that's the Chama is the heat. No.
The sun. The sun.
Sun. Mishmeshet. Beyom Rishon. Kenan. Is it like Mishtamesh? It is used.
Mishameshet. It functions.
Close.
Or is right. On what day?
It functions on the first day. Kenan.
What's the first day?
Sunday.
Thank you.
Kenan. Well, what's Kenan like?
Ki'inyan Roshei Yamim.
Like the first day.
Beginning of the days, yeah.
Like the beginning of the days. Mutar ka chayu kriv leoto. And for you it's mutar? Is that what it's trying to say?
Mitoch, when he said, Mitochach, Hayu Korin Loto Yom Notzri, Al Shem Shu Kavol Nebuchadnezzar. It was called the day of the Notzrim because it was the day of this Nebuchadnezzar day. Al Tzad Mimshelet Chama Shebo, because of the rule of the sun. Vadvarim Nirim Ubirurim. And this is absolutely clear. So the Meiri introduces a radical position, which is that when the Gemara says that Notzrim are idol worshippers, it don't mean it. Right? It does not mean it. They are, in fact, not idol worshippers. When we say idol worshippers, we don't mean them, we mean sun worshippers. What?
When did he live?
His 13th century, his exact years.
What, the Meiris, you mean?
Yeah, his exact years, I'll tell you, his exact years.
1200 something, I think.
That's 13th century.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, but his exact years, I'll tell you, 1249 to 1306.
That's the Crusades.
Really, the
Not
Crusades
really.
started before.
The first crusade was 1096. Yeah. That's a date you should remember.
Were all the Notzrim
Same thing with 1066 also.
There are a lot of dates you should remember. Not like everything.
Gone now, so this doesn't apply. It's on Halalu.
No, 1066.
Right? So the Meiri says, first of all, Christians, we're not talking about Christians, we're talking about these sun worshippers. Then the Meiri goes farther. Now this is where it gets even more controversial. The Meiri introduces a principle throughout his There we go. Take your sources. Throughout his writings. And he says, in many, many places, that many of the prohibitions that we have in the Gemara about non-Jews only apply to the barbarians of the time of the Gemara. But not if someone is what he calls Gidurim B'Gidrei Hadatot. Civilized. Right? Because what does dat mean?
Knowledge.
No.
Religion? No.
Not da'at. Right? It's like the third time I've done it today. Not da'at with an ayin, just dalit taf. Right? Like a dati. Right now, dati? So it technically, in modern terminology, we call it religion. What does it actually mean?
Without?
No. Where does it come up in Tanakh? This is a book you all know.
Like one of the Chumash I don't know.
No, it's not in Chumash. It's a Persian word. Hint, hint, hint.
It comes up in Perm.
Thank you. It was not a Sephardi comment. It's in Megillas Esther, which happens in Persia. It was not some weird racist Sephardi comment. It was hint, hint. It's in Megillas Esther. My God. Datehem show notes. Right? Kol dat vidat. Dat means a law, a convention, right? We use it for religion because religion is a particular type of convention law.
Didn't it take
right?
place in Baghdad? No, it took place in Persia.
Yes. Right? Right? So that's dat. So he says that if someone is gidurim, what's it get there?
Fence.
A fence. So they are fenced in. Meaning they circumscribe themselves, they're controlled. Bigidrei hadatot. By of whatever religion, it doesn't apply to them. Right? All these negative things we say about non-Jews, right? It's not non-Jews, it's people who are barbarians. But anybody who is gedurim b'gidrei hadatot,
They are religious.
they are religious.
For the time being, this is kind of convenient.
Yeah, 1 second. Yes. Okay. So what does the Meiri, right? So what does the Meiri mean, right? So this has been discussed by many scholars. Please stay.
I'm sitting down, I'm stretching.
Okay, fine.
I'm tired. We don't want to fall asleep.
So many scholars have taken this up. Ephraim Urbach, Jacob Katz, right? Most recently Moshe Halbertal, right? And have tried to figure out what does he mean. So let me get you a good quote from him. I printed out this article by Halbertal because he's like the Baal HaMemra, right? We'll see whether he's right, but let's start with it, okay? Now he says this in terms of a lot of things, right? He says this in terms, as we see here, as the prohibition of doing business with a Gentile on his festival day. He says about other things. He has some very radical ones. So, for example, Meiri says that when the halacha is mikra din that on Shabbos you're only allowed to be machal Shabbos to save a Jew, right? A Jew, not a non-Jew, right? Nowadays we do mishum eva. Meiri says no. Yeah, to prevent animosity because it can be dangerous, right? So no, Meiri says nah. It's only
Jews.
It's only people who are not gdurim b'gidrei hadatot.
They're not religious.
They're not religious, or charging interest, right? Charging interest.
So you can save them if they're religious.
Correct. If they're religious, they're Christians, right? The only thing now, in general, as Halbertal notes, the category of the Meiri did not say this at all. Was things about creating distance between Jews and non-Jews, right? Any prohibition that was meant to maintain distance between Jews and non-Jews, right? And Meiri maintained was still in effect. Okay? So, okay, here. So let me read you a little bit from Halbertal's article. This is the English version of it. He says, in considering the prohibition on commercial dealings with a Gentile on his festival day, this is our passage, right? Meiri says, it appears to me that these matters all pertain only to worshippers of idols and their forms and images, but nowadays these commercial activities are wholly permitted. Again, on the same subject, for it is common practice in all lands to trade with those among whom they dwell in all commodities and all manners of commerce, even on their holiday. It seems certain that the reason is that these rules were enacted only for meaning the Talmudic times, when the worship of idols was widespread for sacrifice and thanksgiving, see in reference to their festival days, for they worship the heavenly host, the sun, the moon, trees, and stones. The Meiri thus distinguishes between ancient times when idolatry was prevalent and his own era. When doing so, he nevertheless makes mention the distinction between nations restricted by religious practice and nations not so restricted. Right now, then he quotes this passage, right? As for the statement in the Gemara that a Christian is always forbidden to be traded with, I interpret it from watchers who come from a foreign country, as stated in Yirmiyahu, who refer to that nation of Notrim after Nebuchadnezzar. It is known that an image of the sun in Babylon, the entire nation of Nebuchadnezzar worshipped it. You already know the sun serves on the first day, Sunday, in the enumeration of the beginning of days, and that day accordingly was called Notri on account of its connection to Nebuchadnezzar because of association with the sun's dominion, all of which is obvious and clear.
So what is he saying? Is that
right? So what does he do? So here, Meiri's interpretive agility in his effort to distinguish between the Christians and the ancient idolatrous nations reaches its pinnacle in his interpretation of the word Natsri in the Talmud. In his view, the Christians referred to the Talmud are none other than the Babylonians, the nation of Nebuchadnezzar, and the first day referred to the context not of the Christian holy day, first day in which the Babylonians worship the sun. The step of determining that the Christians of his day were not idolaters is taken as well in other passages along the prohibition, flow from concern about indirect contact with idolatrous ritual. So the Meiri, right, and Halbertal goes on to develop this, seems to say that Christians are not Ovdei Avodah Zarah, because when the Gemara talks about Ovdei Avodah Zarah, what it means specifically, you have the other half of the article, right, are barbaric nations. But Christians were not barbarians. Right? For example, in another striking passage, he says that there's a bracha that you're supposed to say if you see a destroyed Beis Avodah Zarah. But the Meiris says that you don't if you saw a destroyed church.
So are we saying Christians are okay or not? So we're going back and forth between whether, because you keep saying how
have to look at this
they're good because they're religious, and at the same time they're not like the Babylonians that were ruffians and barbarians.
Why are we going back and forth? We're not going back and forth at all. Meiri is saying, right? Meiri seems to be saying that they are. They're not Ovdei Avodah Zarah. In fact, for many intents and purposes, we have to teach them. They have to treat them as.
We treat them
as Jews.
Jews.
Yes.
Then why is Mary disagreeing with the bracha?
No, he says we don't make a bracha when we see a destroyed church because that's not something we celebrate. We only say a bracha on a destroyed pagan temple.
Really? Pagan? Isn't that worse than Christianity?
Yes, that's his point. If you see a destroyed church, you won't celebrate. That's the point.
Now I get it.
Right?
I don't understand though. This seems like a thing of...
Yeah, it seems like you're blessing your...
no, but like this is like, if you look at his time period, right, this is very much of a time of inconvenience.
Right, and here's a good summary of some of it, right? He says, right, Meiri's ruling on these issues far transcend the calculus of economic benefits that guided other medieval halachic authorities. Right, this isn't just, he doesn't only say it here, where other people do, by the monetary one, that allows you to do business, right? He says it in places where it really sounds like he is expressing value for Christianity.
In other words, Christianity would be considered Avodah Zarah.
Correct. Right? And then he continues as follows. Right? He says, the concept, one possessed of religion, right? A Baldat has a source and distinction held by Maimonides' philosophical heirs, Shmuel ibn Tabon, Moses ibn Tabon, and Jacob Antoli. Possessed of religion denotes a person whose faith and actions are based not on inquiry, but an accepted belief in a divinity that exercises providence and imposes punishment. According to the philosophers, religion is a necessary condition to the existence of the social order, for in contrast to those possessed of wisdom, the masses are motivated primarily by the hope of reward and the fear of punishment. Belief in creation ex nihilo is the central metaphysical premise that characterizes those possessed of religion, and it makes religion possible. It is therefore fitting that a philosopher treat as esoteric everything connected with the position that negates creation ex nihilo, providence, and recompense. Society lacking religion is a dangerous society. Stated by the philosopher Meiri quotes in his comments, of those restricted by the ways of religion, put to death one who has no religion. Here we can recognize the influence of the concept of religion that flourished in the philosophical tradition preceding the Meiri, and not surprising that he refers to the philosophical statement in what is clearly a halachic analysis. The Meiri differed from his predecessors in how he ranked one possessed of religion and one possessed of wisdom, and he derived the concept of religion in its essential nature from the philosophical tradition that preceded him. Right, so what does he say? Right, he says that the Meiri recognized, and this was something that many people recognize, that religion is one of those things that keeps society in order for the average person. Right? That's part of what religion does. It doesn't. Now, for some people, they say that negatively. Right? It's the opiate of the masses. Right? Or whatever. To quote Marx. But the Meiri fundamentally thinks that religion is what keeps people
civil.
Is what keeps people civil, right? And therefore, what the Meiri says consistently is that when the Gemara talks about idolatry, it's not really saying, it doesn't. The real category that's important for the Gemara is not idolatry. Right? What is it? One second. What's really, for the Meiri, what's the difference? Civilized or uncivilized? Right? And therefore the Meiri says Christianity is civilized, and therefore for many, many, many different purposes, Christians are correct. Now Halbertal actually claims, right, that the Meiri also thinks that Christianity is not Avodah Zarah. Right? That's part of this. Right? That the Meiri is essentially the way the Ramah understands Tosfos plus. Right? That not only is Christianity not technically Avodah Zarah, but we go farther. That Christianity provides enough of a fabric of religion that many of the discriminatory halachot between Jews and non-Jews don't apply, because they weren't really Jews and non-Jews. They were between civilized peoples and barbarians. Wait.
So that,
Hold. Wait, hold a second. Okay. So now, there are many people who push back on this understanding of Meiri. Right? Because, right, the Meiri, right, at first glance you would say, what is it easier to do? Is it easier to say that Christianity is not Avodah Zarah? Or is it easier to say that Christians are considered like brothers to Jews under certain circumstances? Which is a more radical position?
Not Avodah Zarah. What was the other?
It's more radical than they're like brothers.
Right, okay, good. Shimon, why do you say what you say?
Because they're clearly not following the same religion as us.
Good. Right, so there were a lot of people who didn't like this position, right? And they said, you have to be careful. What is the Meiri doing? Is the Meiri really saying that Christianity isn't Avodah Zarah? Or is he saying, look, Christianity is Avodah Zarah, fine, right? If you note, he doesn't say here that they're not Avodah Zarah. It's not Avodah Zarah. He just says, right, that the business prohibition doesn't apply to them. So, and even though, one second, and even some of the more radical positions, right, like you're not allowed to lend them with interest. You could say that at some level, look, maybe it really is Avodah Zarah. How could you say that Christianity is Avodah Zarah and still maintain that you're allowed to save them on Shabbos? So some people said, well, think about it. Maybe all the Meiri is saying is, look, it's Avodah Zarah. But the reason that we discriminate against them is not per se that they're idolaters, it's because ancient pagans were also barbaric. In a Chanami, it's Avodah Zarah. I'm not denying theologically that there's a problem theologically with it, but it is still Avodah Zarah, right? So even though at first glance you'd say it's more radical to say they're brothers, right? Because you would say, look, maybe because Tosfos clearly says, look, they're not. Even if you think Tosfos says that it's not Avodah Zarah, he doesn't think they're Jewish or that we treat them like Jews. Right? They're not idol worshippers, but they're not like us. Right? That's Tosfos. But at some level, you could say, look, maybe they are idolaters, but you're misunderstanding the halachot. A lot of these discriminatory laws aren't about are you an idolater or not an idolater. It's are you barbaric or civilized. Right?
So if you go according to that, then yes, they're Jews. But if you go according to,
but they're not Jews. That's not quite Jews.
Brothers.
They're brothers. They're brothers. Right? So many people. Right? So one second. Let me finish my thought. So many people pushed back and they said it can't be. Stay. You have a question, so stay. Maybe I'll answer it while you're talking about. So some people pushed back and said that can't be what the Meiri means. Meiri can't mean that Christians are not Avodah Zarah. What it means is, look, sometimes we discriminate against barbarians. Christians aren't barbarians, but you know what? Their religion is still problematic. Now, David Berger has an article. I have tremendous respect for David Berger. I've mentioned him a few times, right? Rabbi Dr. David Berger.
is he from?
Yes, I've mentioned him before, right? He's the dean of the right? Okay. So he has an article where he says, for years he pushed back, and he says, I don't believe it, right? I'm okay with the notion that maybe the Meiri was pretty radical in terms of getting along with non-Jews. But I don't believe that the Meiri really thought that Christianity b'shum panam b'ofen, was not Avodah Zarah. Right? That doesn't sit right. But then he said at some point, he came around and he said, you know what? There's one passage that in the Meiri that is so radical that you're almost forced to believe that the Meiri really didn't think Christianity was Avodah Zarah, and that's the next passage. Because this passage is beyond astonishing. Yes? Max.
I have a question. So, this also seems like a time of convenience for him to write this.
So no, it doesn't. Because, right, as Halbertal noted correctly, if it's only about convenience, so the Balei Tosfot, you're right? The Balei Tosfot are almost explicit that it's about convenience, right? I mean, we haven't read the first Tosfos yet. What? No, not appeasement. Balei Tosfot said, look, we need to do business with non-Jews, so we'll do business with non-Jews, right? Because they're not technically with Avodah Zarah, whatever, right? Meiri goes much farther than appeasement.
I'm saying a Miri
It goes much farther than that.
I'm saying,
right?
But it seems also something like convenience.
Why convenience? I'm saying it's much more than convenience, right?
I said
it's too radical to be convenient.
I'm saying in terms of convenience, so Christians don't see us like, because it hopes that Christians will see us as equal.
You're talking way too early for that. There was no hope that they were going to see it as equal. Right? You're talking the 13th century. Right? It's not like a thing. Right? You're right that if we jump forward to the Sanhedrin of Napoleon, right, when they invoke the Meiri, that's what they want. Right? Is that Napoleon wants to grant Jews equal rights, but he doesn't want to grant equal rights to someone who's discriminatory. Right? So Napoleon, you're right, that obviously they're pulling the Meiri because that was needed. Right? Meiri's in the 13th century. Well, yeah, Meiri's in the 13th century. This is a bit before that. Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but David Berger writes in an article, he said, for years I'd pushed back. I couldn't believe that the Meiri really thought that Bechlal, Christianity is not Avodah Zarah. I was willing to accept that he was radical in terms of how we're supposed to treat non-Jews. Right? But then there's this one passage in Hurriot that is so radical. Right? It's mamish. It's insane. Right? And this is what he says. Okay, let's read it inside. Haminim v'apikorsim mutter lahazikam biyadayim. Right, sectarians and heretics, you are allowed to physically hurt them. Okay? You are allowed to physically hurt them. V'amisurot gufam mutar u'monam asur. And those who tell on Jews, right, give over Jews to the non-Jewish authorities, right, their body is free, meaning, right, you can have them killed, essentially, right, not their money per se, fine. V'amushumad la'avodah zarah, and one who apostatizes, la'avodah zarah, meaning converts out, right?
Like a Jew to converts to...
Yeah. Bichlal haminim, well, not really. He starts worshipping another religion, let's say. Bichlal haminim.
Well, that's being over...
He's a sectarian. So Miri says there's all these categories of really bad people, right? And we treat apostatized Jews worse than we treat actual idolaters. Right? Ginsburg, I know, wants to spend months on this in his shir. Right? On we're allowed to or supposed to find ways of not directly but indirectly killing them. Right? Like there are all types of quite harsh statements in the Gemara about how we treat people like this.
But it doesn't really apply to nowadays.
So tell me. So now, according to Meiri,
it doesn't really
right?
apply to nowadays.
Oh, one second. Wait. So Meiri says, right? Please stop. Meiri says, right? The worst, right? The people we look at as the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst, right? Are people who worship other religions and things like that, right? That's right? That's bottom of the totem pole. But what about non-Jews? Do we treat them that badly? No, right? Idolaters, whatever. We have certain obligations regarding idolatry, but someone's in another religion, that's not our problem, right? So tell me, what's worse? A Jew for Jesus or a Jew who says, I'm not a Jew for Jesus, I'm just a Christian? Who's worse?
Jews for Christian.
So you would think what? Yes.
The 12 apostles in Christianity were all Jews.
Yeah, we know that.
So you're telling what is it worse to say Jews are for Christians? So
no, I don't want to get into this story. That's irrelevant by the time you're in the 13th century. Yes, Jesus himself was also a Jew. Well, my nafkamina.
Yeah.
Right.
I know it's irrelevant, but There's some how I say context to it, no?
Yeah, the apostles were mishumadim. Okay. Yeah.
No, I was saying you said because it's worse than when a Jew how I say.
Yeah, but I'm saying, right, you would think that the worst, right, it's even more egregious for someone to say, I'm not Jewish, I am a Christian, right, than to say, I'm a Jew for Jesus, right? And I'm not talking about whether it's more insidious,
So
right?
is it-
I'm talking about fundamentally. I'm not saying like whether it's more dangerous for other people. I'm
So-
saying like, is it more insidious?
Like it's
Right.
to say that you're just not Jewish at all.
Yeah, like which is more of a rebellion against Judaism itself?
So now-
right? Is it to say I'm still a Jew, but I happen to also believe in Jesus, but I'm still committed to being a Jew, right? Or is it?
Like I'm throwing away Judaism.
Or do you just say no? I'm leaving, right? I'm going to go be a pope.
Oh, if you're leaving, okay, I didn't know Jews for Jesus meant that you were still holding as Jews.
Yeah, that's what it means to be a Jew for Jesus,
So if you're
right?
changing to a Christian, then yeah.
She would have thought that's worse.
Yep.
And then the Meiris says, "Udvarim elu kulam k'shadayin shein Yisrael aleihem." Look inside. All of these things are only if the name Jew is still on him. Shekol sheshem Yisrael alavu mitpaker umichalel aradat. Anyone who still calls himself Jewish but mitpaker, right? He rebels, he throws it off, and he violates religion. Ansho chamor ad harbei. His 1 second. His punishment is very great. Because he is a sectarian, he's a heretic. U kemi shein lo dat. Right? If you are a Jew and you say, but I'm a Jew for Jesus, so you're nisht a Jew and you're nisht a Christian.
What does it mean, nish to Jew?
You're not a Jew and you're not a Christian, right? Meaning, you're a Jew, right? But you're saying, I'm a Jew, but I don't care that Jews don't believe in Christianity. And you're not really a Christian, because you're saying, look, I'm still Jewish, I just believe in Jesus. Right? Kol mi sheyatza min hakal ligamre. But if you don't remain a Jew for Jesus, what do? You leave the religion entirely. V'nas lo ben dar acheret. And you become a good, devout Christian. Another religion. Harehu etzleinu kivnei oto adat shu nichnas ba l'chol davar. So he's like a Christian to us. That's it. And we don't, he's not a rebel, right? Chutz migin v'kedushin, he says he's still technically Jewish.
Right.
So like if he marries someone, right, there may be an effect, he might work, and Gerish and stuff like that. Right, meaning he's deep down a Jew. But the Meiris says, which is better? For someone to remain a Jew and be a Jew for Jesus, or just say I'm a Christian? He says?
Just say I'm a Christian.
No, that's the crazy thing about it. He says, just go to the other religion. You go to the other religion, we stop treating you as a rebel.
Yeah, so I thought you were saying what's worse.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, Jew for Jesus. Exactly, yeah.
I have a question.
Which adds up with everything we just said before.
Right? So the crazy thing about Meiris, and this is one of those passages that forces people to say that maybe the Meiris really meant it, was that, right?
Really well in with everything he's saying.
Right, meaning this is the passage that pushes some people to say, the Meiris really meant it. This isn't just like some Ben Adam Chavero thing. That like we treat Christians as more brothers in certain Ben Adam Chavero interpersonal components of Judaism because they're civilized.
Right.
Meiris seems to actually be making a radical theological statement that to be an Avodah Zarah is to be some pagan thing, right? But Christians are not, and therefore I'd rather someone convert to Christianity, right? It's just that, look, if someone's an apostate, someone's within Judaism, and he's rebelling and believing, that's terrible. But if he just converts,
Implications of this are insane.
yes.
It's like,
So,
you're not sure Shabbos, why don't you just become completely a Christian, okay?
right. So right now, there's still a big machlokas, but this is what the Meiri means. And I, every time I go back to Meiri, I go back and forth. What did he mean? Because I haven't, what you really need to do, right, is you need to sit there with the 34 places where Meiri says it, plus all the places you would expect him to say it where he doesn't say it, right? So the first question, does he mean it? The second question is, if he does mean it, how much different is it than Tosfos? Right? Does he really mean something theologically much more radical than Tosfos, if Tosfos means it? Right? Or not? I'm going to leave it a bit open, if you're interested. But I wanted to introduce you to this just to realize that there are people who quote at you the Meiri who says that Christianity is b'chlal not Avodah Zarah, and you will see that despite the fact that this is like a minority position, right, that not only is it possibly not Avodah Zarah, but for many of the halacha between Jews and non-Jews, Right? We also treat non-Jews as brothers. Right? This shita doesn't get quoted very much until like the 19th century, but in the last 150, 200 years, it gets quoted very often, at least as a snif lahakel, because as a snif lahakel, which is like an extra reason to be lenient, because in a lot of the questions in the modern state of Israel, especially, right, how do we treat non-Jews within our midst? Right? Halacha doesn't always have the nicest things to say about practitioners of other faiths. So you'll see that a lot of poskim will say, well, we always have the Meiri to rely on, that maybe halacha, when you have a civilized religion, treats them much more as Jews, maybe at the interpersonal level, maybe even at the theological level. Again, what exactly the Meiri means, and whether he's focusing on the interpersonal level or whether he means on the theological level, every time I go to it, I go back and forth, and like I said, people who are much Gedolim v'Tovim many have tried to weigh in on this. If you really want to, and this comes back to my point before, if you want to have your own opinion on it, I can give you the list of the 34 places where the Meiri discusses it, and you can decide what at least 34 places where he discusses it, and you can decide what you think he means. Yes, Danny.
My question is, let me say there's a Jew that becomes an atheist. Does the Meiri also consider? So
that's the interesting thing, that according to Meiri, an atheist is probably worse than a Christian. Right? Because according to Meiri, what gives you that positive status is being gedurim begeder hadatot. Right? Is being constrained by religion. An atheist is not. But according to most Jewish thinkers, we'd probably rather you be an atheist than part of another religion. Right? Because atheist is like a nothing, and another religion is like a negative. Right? So the Meiri seems to explicitly say not that way. We'd rather you be gadur begeder hadatot, right, than just be a...
So in other words, he's more against, if Meiri is the way, if he's thinking, he's more against when the Jews are atheists than
It sounds that way. Now again, I'm not 100% convinced that I know what the Meiri meant, right? But it's important to realize that this shita exists, and that it is one of those that gets quoted a lot trying to figure it out. Now what I gave you at the end here is that the Ber HaGola on Shulchan Aruch actually does also go in this direction, again for certain things. And like I said, you will see a lot in modern psak that shitos like the Meiri are shitos like the Meiri are quoted to help mitigate some of the discriminatory laws between Jews and non-Jews. If you look at the last source I gave you on this page, right, this is a translation of the Ber HaGola. Ber HaGola says, the rabbi said this in relation to the pagans of their own times only, who worship stars and the constellations and did not believe in the Exodus or in creation ex nihilo. What does that mean? Ex nihilo is from nothing. Yesh me'ayin. Right, it's just Latin. Right? But the people in whose shade we, the people of Israel, are exiled, and amongst whom we are dispersed, do in fact believe in creation ex nihilo in the Exodus and the main principles of religion. Their whole aim and intent is to make them is to the Maker of heaven and earth, as the codifiers have written. He said, but right nowadays Christians, right, they're trying to serve God. So far then from our not being forbidden to save them, we are on the contrary obliged to pray for their welfare. And as Elazar Ashkenazi wrote at length on the Passover Haggadah, concerning the sentence, pour out thy wrath upon the peoples who have not known thee, or in Hebrew, Shvo chamatcha al goyim asher lo yida'ucha.
Are you reading this?
Yeah.
Oh, it got cut off.
What? The English?
At the bottom.
Goes to the next part.
It just goes. Is there a purpose for the cutoff there? It looks like it's. Is that just like the?
I know. I put a box. I just put a box.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thing. It's not.
No. It was just it's just space thing.
Oh.
But it was King David Peter Bonham who prayed to God to pour out his wrath on the heathen who do not believe in the creation ex nihilo and the signs and wonders which God, blessed be He, performed for us in Egypt and gave him the Torah. But the Gentiles in whose shadow we live and under whose wings we shelter believe in all these things. As ever, and hence we stand on guard to pray continually for the welfare and success of the kingdom and the ministers for all the states and places over which they rule. Indeed, Maimonides ruled in accordance with Yeshua, the pious the Gentile nations to have a portion of the world to come. Okay. Now, if you realize, though, perhaps one of the most radical implication of the Meiri is that we noted, according to the Rambam, is Christianity Avodah Zarah?
Yes.
Yes. According to the Rama, seemingly according to Tosfos, right, is Christianity Avodah Zarah?
Yes. Oh, I It's been a
Iffy.
while.
Yes for Jews, no for non-Jews.
Okay.
What does the Meiris seem to be saying in Hurios?
That it is
Not really Avodah Zarah even for Jews.
more brotherly.
I mean, but
They're more Jews than some Jews are.
No, right, but it might also be saying that what? That it's not really Avodah Zarah even for Jews. Right, that's even more radical. Right, that's really the most radical implication you can derive from this. Right, but saying that if a Jew actually converts to another religion is not so bad, right?
But it seems like he's saying it's not Avodah Zarah for Jews who completely denounce their Judaism.
No, so look, he's saying that it's not a good thing, right? Obviously, we believe Judaism is more true, right? And therefore, but you can't say that, well, it's better to totally convert than to be a rebellious Jew unless you think that what they're converting to is not straight out of Avodah Zarah, right? And that's, so if we now summarize what we've been seeing, right, is you have these possible three positions, where you have the Rambam who says in no uncertain terms that Christianity is Avodah Zarah. You have Balei Tosfot who might say that that's not true, but we noted that could mean different things, right? It could be that they never said it, right? That they're only making a point about vows. It could mean that they think Christianity b'chlal is not Avodah Zarah, or they could think that Trinitarianism per se is not Avodah Zarah, but the fact that they have iconography is still Avodah Zarah, even if the religion is not Avodah Zarah, or vice versa, right? The Meiri, the reason it's so controversial is because it's clear that the Meiri says, look, a lot of the discriminatory laws between Jews and non-Jews don't apply to people who are religious, but this passage in Huriot seems to indicate even more, that at some level, not only did Meiri think Christianity might not be Avodah Zarah for non-Jews, he might think it's not even Christianity for Jews. It's not Avodah Zarah for Jews, right? Or not fully Avodah Zarah for Jews. Now, and as I said, in a lot of the discriminatory laws between Jews and non-Jews, you'll see this quoted very often in modern psak, partially as apologetics, partially because of Shas Chak, partially because people believe it. And sometimes you'll see it quoted on the theological level because it's one of the things that makes it easier for poskim to say, okay, we're allowed to have churches, let's say in Israel, right? Rav Herzog, when he writes his tshuva, how is it that we're allowed to have churches in Israel? One of the things he quotes is the Meiri, because if it's not Avodah Zarah, so then a church is not a Beit Avodah Zarah. If it's not a Beit Avodah Zarah, we don't have a chiyuv to destroy it. Right? And we're looking for Shita to rely on in the state of Israel, because now you have dominion, right? You have control, and the general halacha should be, if you have control, political control, you should be getting rid of Batei Avodah Zarah. But again, I'm not totally sure what the Meiri means, right? Whether he means this on the theological level, the social level, I'm not 100% sure. But it's important to at least introduce that it's a possibility, because if you ever do research in these topics, you'll see that people will quote the Meiri as the Shita who says that Christianity isn't really Avodah Zarah at all, right? Which is even more radical than the Ramah's understanding of Tosfos. Again, I'm not sure he said it, and if he did say something mechudash, whether it was really that much more than Tosfos, I don't know. But it is important to know. And again, if you're interested in really doing the work, I'll give you the list. You can sit with a set of Meiri, and you can go through every time the Meiri says it in Kol HaTorah Kula, right? And then you can come back to me and tell me what it exactly. Stop. And you'll think, and you can figure out what he says. Okay. I think the vote was that we'll take one more topic before we get back to the business thing, because what we've discussed now is Christianity, which was what the Jews were dealing with in Christian Spain, Christian France, Christian Germany, right? But there were also the Jews who were in Muslim countries, and they had to deal with it in Islam. What we'll see is that the majority of poskim are going to follow the Rambam and are going to say that Christianity is Avodah Zarah, but Islam is not, because Islam is radically monotheistic in a certain sense, right? But we'll see that Iran does seem to think that Islam is Avodah Zarah, and what we're going to have to do is try to think why. Right? Why would you think Islam is Avodah Zarah? Right? Where would you get this notion? Right? If it's monotheistic, why would you say it is Avodah Zarah? What would that mean? And again, right now we're not going to get into this. Maybe later we will. The sugya of whether you can go into a church or a mosque and the like is really later on in Staf Yud Aleph. But all these sugyot, right, and relation between Jews and non-Jews obviously depend on the status of the given Jew or non. the given non-Jew in question, and therefore the status of Islam is also important. I was mentioning to Shimon, I think, that I was listening to a shiur by Shlomo Einhorn, who was dealing with Scientology. Now he notes that whatever you think about Christianity or Islam, Scientology is shtuyot, but not Avodah Zarah, because Scientology, you know what Scientology is? It's like,
Fake religion.
It's like the culty thing. Yeah, it's based on a sci-fi book, right? Sci-fi book. But according to the official doctrines of the Church of Scientology, we don't impose any belief in God. You're supposed to meditate on the alien things.
It's like the Montessori of religion.
It's Hubbard's book. I don't know. What?
It's like the Montessori of religion.
Whatever it is. But anyways, so tomorrow we will deal with the question of Islam, and then we'll get back to our actual to the sugya that this whole thing is based on, which is the issue of business with them.